Nina Sohal is with us right now. Hello, Nina. Hi. We'll get your microphone on first. That's it. Lovely. And tell us a bit about yourself, first of all.
Yeah, my name's Nina, and I'm working as with an organisation called Arts Asia.
Yeah.
And we've been developing projects uncovering hidden histories about the shared sort of history that we all share in this country, especially Asians and the British communities together, and trying to make people a bit more aware of the shared heritage that makes the country as it is today.
So in other words, and of course the exhibition that you're involved with at the moment is in court with Queen Victoria. That's right, isn't it?
That's right.
So we've got our Queen Victoria. So where does all this come into this? It's to do with India as well, of course, isn't it?
Absolutely.
But she never went to India, Queen Victoria, did she?
I mean, that's very. I mean, I don't think a lot of people realise she didn't go to India. She was the Empress of India. And what we wanted to do was to look at her relationship with India and how that was, and the fact that she didn't actually go to India. So with a grant from the Heritage Lottery Fund, we sort of explored into this, and we sort of realised that we know a lot of Indian royalty visited the Queen here, but what was her real relationship with India? And what we found is that there were two people who she was actually quite close to during her long 64-year reign. And one of them was a Maharaja, a very young, dashing Maharaja, the last Maharaja of the Punjab, whose kingdom was annexed by the British. His Kohinoor diamond was taken, and he came to live with the Queen. He was converted to Christianity. He was a Sikh. He had his hair cut, and yet he became a very loyal subject to the Queen.
And this was in the, I mean, years and years and years back. What era are we talking about?
We're talking about the mid-1850s.
Yeah.
And he was a young 17-year-old.
But why was he'd come from India? Why did he come over here in the first place then?
Well, I mean, the British there were annexing different parts of India to sort of, you know, get into their Indian empire, if you like. And he was the young Maharaja, and I think it was seen at the time that, you know, rather than just kill him off, I mean, his whole family had been massacred. A lot of his family had been massacred. He was converted to Christianity, and they thought it was better to bring him over here as a ward to the Queen. So she more or less adopted him, and he lived here as part of the royal family with her and her children, and spent a lot of time with the royal family, and she was really impressed with his royal garb, and had him dressed up in his silks and turbans, and he sort of tried to bring that to her, if you like. She liked to see him in that guise. And he became very friendly with the future king, Edward VII, who became a great friend of his. And she had a portrait painted of him in his finery, which hangs today in Osborne House in the Isle of Wight. And it's a very famous painting where he's dressed up in his finery, and he's also wearing a cameo of the Queen around his neck to show his loyalty. And regards to the Kohinoor diamond, I think the Queen felt quite guilty to be seen with this, you know, this diamond which had a lot of heritage for him and his family, and asked him to sort of put him in a situation where she asked him to gift it to her. So he was put in that very sort of difficult situation, but I think he felt he was a loyal subject, and that was what he had to do. He was here in England, and he was actually made to give it to the Queen, whilst he was having this magnificent portrait painted of himself by a German portrait painter called Winterhalter, and it's a really famous painting. It goes all around the world in lots of exhibitions now.
Where is this exhibition travelling?
It is travelling. It's just opened at Slough Museum. It'll be going to Herschel Park as well, which is a Victorian park. Be going to the Nehru Centre, which is an extension of the Indian High Commission. Hopefully it'll go to Thetford, and that is where Maharaja Dilip Singh actually lived as a country squire with his family, so it should go on there. And we're hoping that it will tour beyond that if there is interest. It's really bringing it to life through dramatisation, the story of the Queen and these two Indian people.
Well, that's one person she was involved with, and we'll talk about the other person in a moment, right here at BBC Radio Berkshire. And more from Nina in a few moments' time. BBC Radio Berks show. I saw them last night. I think they were on the Brits last night. You didn't see that last night? At all? You didn't see that? Nano Sola is here with me right now, who's the production manager in the court with Queen Victoria. I must admit, the Brits, have you ever watched it, the Brit Awards or not? You haven't?
No.
Not into music, then?
Not as much, no.
You don't like music?
No. I like music, but I don't watch those sort of
things,
programs.
No. James Corden was... He looked like a bank manager last night.
I saw the photograph of him on the website this morning.
Very odd. I don't know why it is that they always get it wrong, the Brits, for some reason, and I don't know why they don't get a disc jockey to compare it, or something to do with music.
Maybe like yourself.
Well, yeah, probably not me, but one of the DJs or somebody knows something about music. I don't know why you get somebody like James Corden, who's very good. I mean, I love his programs and things, but it's not really him, that, and it's just boring. And my daughter, who's 15 years old, she didn't enjoy it either. She said, "Oh, God, it's boring." So I thought, well, if she finds it boring, I do. So we watched something else. Getting back to your exhibition in court with Queen Victoria, we talked about one person who was very important in the Queen Victoria's life, but another person was given to her.
Absolutely, that's right.
A little free gift. Here's somebody for you.
Yeah, it was Abdul Karim. He was gifted to the Queen as part of her Golden Jubilee.
Who gave
it was the British authorities in India. So it was like a gift from India. A servant, and that was quite common. I mean, she was the Queen, and he was brought over here. I mean, he wasn't very good his English wasn't very good. He was taught a bit of English. He was taught how to stand with the Queen, how to talk with the Queen. And he thought he was coming to be her orderly, which meant sort of riding out with the Queen on, state occasions. But in fact, he came over to be a waiter at her tables. And he didn't realise that he'd be doing menial tasks. So, I mean, he was quite unhappy with that, I think. And but he uses initiative. He'd also taken a spice box with him to England. He introduced curries to the kitchen, to the royal kitchen, and Queen Victoria surprisingly took a great liking to curries, and they became a lunchtime favourite. And the cooks there then were cooking authentic Indian food for the first time in Britain, really. And later on, he started teaching her Urdu, and she actually could speak. And he began to teach her to write Urdu, and together they kept a journal, which was very private, which only they had access to. And within a year, his status was elevated, and he no longer was waiting at tables, and he became known as her munshi, or teacher. And
lovely name, Munshi.
Munshi, which means teacher.
Yes.
And just like with Maharaja Dilip Singh, Queen Victoria liked to have her loved ones and her pets painted. So she had Abdul Karim's portrait painted, and there are actually 3 paintings of him which hang in Osborne House in the Isle of Wight again, dressed again in his special uniform, which was designed by the Queen, which is gold and white turban, a tunic, which bearing her sort of royal cipher on the front as well. And he ended up becoming a very close confidant to her. I mean, this Queen was quite elderly by this time, didn't have really any friends. It's just that the household kept their distance. Her family were quite difficult.
I'm just wondering, I mean, he was given to her more or less, I mean, it's like giving something, it's like a slave, isn't it, really, to the Queen? And he was serving to her. How did he become so friendly with her? Just by, she was fascinated by him, I guess?
She was fascinated by him. He, again, like Maharaja Dilip Singh, brought India to her. He fascinated her with stories of, say, the Taj Mahal. He came from Agra, where the Taj Mahal is. He told her about the love between Shah Jahan and his queen, wife Mumtaz, and why the Taj was created as a mausoleum to his wife. And Queen Victoria was of a romantic disposition anyway, so she was attracted to these stories. He told her about the colour and the festivals of India, and of course by introducing her to the language as well, and the cooking, he sort of brought the sort of street life, ordinary life, to her.
Surprising she never went to India, isn't it, really?
It is surprising. I mean, they say it's because, I mean, later on in her life, it was the journey to India at that time wasn't like an 8-hour flight these days. You go on a plane. It was been a long journey, very drawn out. And because of her constitutional role, I don't think that she could have been sort of, taken away for such a long time.
So if you go to the exhibition, which is in Slough, that's right, isn't it?
Yes, it's Slough Museum, the library there.
So you go in there, and And do you see a show? Is it a show, or you look round the exhibition, or is it?
What we've got is we've basically dramatised the sort of interaction and the relationship between the Queen and Abdul Karim and Maharaja Dilip Singh. You walk in, and you know, it's an installation piece. There are 3 chairs. One is the Queen's throne. One is Maharaja Dilip Singh's throne from his father, Ranjit Singh. And then we've created a Munshi's chair, a wooden sort of teacher's chair. But each of these also incorporates a large TV screen, if you like, which brings these stories to life. And the 3 characters appear, and they interact with each other, and the story unfolds, the whole sort of 70-year sort of story, if you like. And you can sit and watch the whole piece, which is about 40 minutes, or you can stop and start it at different intervals of the story. And we also have a kiosk which shows interviews with historians and museum curators, sort of providing a historical overview to the exhibition as well.
Well, a lot of people, I guess, are coming along to see it. A lot of children, I should imagine, school parties and things like that. It's all free as well, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's absolutely free. A lot of interest from school children. Victorian period is in the curriculum. Maybe a new side to this, to the curriculum, you know, to the Victorian period, and also a new side to Queen Victoria. I mean, she was ahead of her times. I mean, Abdul Karim faced a lot of racism in the household, and she stood up for him. She wrote long memos to her staff and said, "Don't call him black. Don't be racist. You know, he will be accompanying me to Europe. He will be accompanying me on different occasions." And you know, the rebellions which may have been sort of there brewing didn't actually happen.
Well, Nina, thank you very much indeed for coming in to tell us all about it. And remember, the exhibition is in Slough. That's
yes,
right,
and we have a talk tomorrow with Shrabani Basu, who's the author of Victoria and Abdul, at 11 o'clock, and that's free too.
Lovely. Thank you very much indeed. This is BBC Radio Berkshire.